Trauma seen through the eyes of an addiction. If we strip trauma of its story and compare it functionally to addiction, the substance isn't alcohol, drugs, or behavior. The substance is the emotional charge itself. More precisely, trauma addiction is an addiction to a specific internal chemical emotional loop that once served survival. The substance in trauma addiction. 1. Stress chemistry, cortisol, adrenaline, norepinephrine. Trauma wires the nervous system to survive threat. That state releases stress hormones. Over time, the body learns, this intensity equals aliveness. This vigilance equals safety. This tension equals familiarity. Just like drugs. The first exposure was overwhelming. Repetition creates tolerance. Absence feels empty, flat, or unsafe. So the system craves activation, not peace. Inner peace feels boring, unreal, untrustworthy, or even dangerous to a traumatized nervous system. 2. Emotional familiarity, not pleasure. Important distinction: trauma is not addictive because it feels good, it's addictive because it feels known. The nervous system prefers familiar pain over unfamiliar safety. That's why people repeat abandonment, rejection, chaos, emotional unavailability, power struggles. This is the same mechanism as an addict returning to a substance that destroys them. 3. Identity reinforcement, ego fuel. Trauma doesn't just create feelings, it creates identity. Examples: I am the one who gets left. I am the strong one who carries. I am the broken one. I must stay alert. I must control. Letting go of trauma feels like losing purpose, losing meaning, losing self. So the ego resists healing the way an addict resists sobriety. Who am I without this? 4. Predictive control, false safety. Trauma memories are replayed not to suffer, but to predict. The mind says, if I keep the pain active, I won't be surprised again. That's an addiction to control, not healing. Just like an addict uses substances to regulate inner states, the trauma mind uses rumination, memory replay, hypervigilance, emotional rehearsal. So, what's the substance? If we name it cleanly, trauma is an addiction to emotional intensity, stress chemistry, familiar suffering, identity certainty, predictive control. All wrapped into one loop. Or in one sentence, reset style, trauma is an addiction to the emotional charge that once kept us alive but now keeps us imprisoned. Why healing feels like withdrawal. This is crucial, and often missed by therapists. Healing trauma produces emptiness, disorientation, fatigue, loss of meaning, nervous system panic. That's withdrawal. Not failure. Not regression. Not it's getting worse. It's the system detoxing from a state it depended on. Could we say, also looking at our formula we presented before, E equals m times c squared, that we are addicted to our memories and bringing them back up? Like with an addiction, we need the substance memory to activate a negative rush, and like with substances, we need more of it. Not to feel good, but to feel familiar. So the revenue from using the substance memory is a fake sense of safety, which is actually familiarity. And since we know from addictions that the rush doesn't last long and the lasting effect is regressive, we need it more often and often to create the chemical cocktail in our body. Our opinion: not only could we say that we are addicted to our memories and bringing them back up, it's actually a very precise description of how the trauma addiction loop works. Let me sharpen it and lock it. Trauma equals memory addiction, not event addiction. The traumatic event is long gone. What remains, and what keeps being used, is memory. So yes, memory is the substance. And just like any substance, it must be reintroduced, it must be activated. It produces a predictable internal state, it creates tolerance, it creates withdrawal when absent. Mapping this cleanly to our formula, E equals m times c squared. Let's translate it in human terms. M equals memory. Stored emotional imaginal content, the story plus image plus meaning. C equals circumstances, conscious attention. Either an external trigger, or internal rumination, imagination. E equals emotional energy, chemical charge. The cortisol adrenaline dopamine cocktail. So the lived formula becomes, emotional energy equals memory times, attention or circumstances squared. Meaning, memory alone does nothing, circumstances alone do nothing, but when memory is activated, the emotional output multiplies massively. Just like nuclear energy, tiny mass, massive release. Why memory becomes addictive. 1. Memory produces a reliable chemical rush, not a pleasant rush, a predictable one. The nervous system learns, when I activate this memory, I know what happens next. I know who I am in this state. I know how to behave. Predictability equals false safety. This is exactly the same mechanism as addiction. 2. Familiarity masquerades as safety. This is the key line we already nailed. The revenue of using the substance memory is not pleasure, it is familiarity. The nervous system prefers known pain over unknown peace, because peace has no reference point. So the trauma mind thinks, at least here I know the rules. 3. Tolerance develops just like with substances. First memory activation leads to a big charge, repetition leads to a diminished effect. Result, more frequent replay. Or stronger triggers. Or reenactments in relationships. This is why trauma escalates into more intense partners, more dramatic situations, stronger emotional swing. The system is chasing the same chemical state it used to reach more easily. 4. Withdrawal feels like emptiness, not relief. When memory is not activated, the system feels flat, disconnected, meaningless, unsafe. Who am I now? That's withdrawal. So the ego does what addicts do, it goes looking for the substance again. Q. Rumination, replay, conflict, self-attack, catastrophizing. The brutal truth, and the liberating one, trauma persists not because the memory is painful, but because it is chemically and identity-wise useful. It provides emotional intensity, predictability, identity continuity, a sense of control. Even though it costs everything else. Why just let it go never works? Because no one tells the nervous system what will replace the chemistry, who you are without the charge, how safety exists without familiarity. So the system panics. The real healing pivot, very important, healing is not deleting memory. It is decoupling memory from energy. Or in our reset language, when memory times attention equals zero charge, the addiction collapses. The memory becomes just a story. No chemical payoff, no identity hook. At that moment, the ego loses interest. Just like an addict loses interest in a substance that no longer produces a rush,